Joining me now, he is the former general manager of the New York Jets, executive with the Miami Dolphins. He is now a front office insider for ESPN, and he's also the founder of the 33rdteam.com. It is the great Mike Tannenbaum. Mike, thanks for coming on. I know you're very busy. How are you?
Great to be with you, Ari, and congratulations with all your recent success and your hard work. And you inspire a lot of people to get in this business because of your work ethic.
I really, really appreciate that, Mike. Obviously, I've known you here for a few years now, and we've spoken a number of times and gotten to know you, gotten to know a lot of things you've been doing as well now that you are in with any teams, but you're doing a lot over here, including with your website at 33rdteam.com, which we'll get to here later on. But I want to start off with some news that happened here on Monday, that the Raiders fired Mike Mayock and are starting their search. I was curious just to hear your thoughts on their decision to fire Mayock, who had the title of GM, but Gruden was there for most of the time and had control. And then what do you think they should do at head coach? Because a lot of people, including players on that team, believe they should keep Rich Bisaccia, but it sounds like they want to go somewhere else and possibly look for a big splash. What do you think they should do there?
Yeah, Ari, a lot to unpack there. I would say a couple of things. First of all, I think Mike Mayock, is a good person. He's worked hard, but when those draft choices don't work out, especially in the first round, it's hard to survive that. And even though he wasn't the person with the final say, Mark Davis obviously made a decision that he had to go, which I think was somewhat of a surprise, but not a shock around the league. When you look at guys like Alex Leatherwood, Damon Arnett, Henry Ruggs in particular, those picks didn't work out. Now, I'm sure, if Mike was here, he would say, well, I didn't make those decisions. And, unfortunately, that's what happens, that, you're going to be bound by, another person's decision. And moving forward, I totally agree. I think Rich Bisaccia did a really good job when you think about all the things that happened during the season. They made the playoffs. And despite losing in Cincinnati, I thought they played pretty well. So I thought he had earned the right for, to at least another season. It certainly doesn't look like it's going that way. And if you look at Mark Davis and, his late father, Al Davis, they certainly had a history of going after bigger names, be it John Madden, John Gruden. And we'll see how it goes. But I'm with you. I do think that Coach Bisaccia earned another opportunity.
Yeah, and just per, NFL rules, you really have to do a whole search right now. So while Bisaccia still has a chance, I know the feeling around the league is that they're going to go somewhere else. But, for him, so much adversity this year from, of course, Gruden, Ruggs, Arnett, injuries, losing 5 out of 6 late in the year, and still making the playoffs and almost winning a playoff game. The name a lot of people are keeping an eye on is Jim Harbaugh. I was going to ask you, should Jim make the move back to the NFL, and should the Raiders really pursue him? You mentioned they like going after big names. Is that a name you think they should pursue here for their next head coach?
Well, one thing I would say about Jim is he did do a great job with the 49ers. I think they went 9 consecutive non-winning seasons before he got to the 49ers. Went there, he took them to a Super Bowl. So, unlike some of these other projections, someone like an Urban Meyer or Matt Rule of recent vintage, Coach Harbaugh is actually won at the NFL level. So I think there's less of a projection. Now, by all accounts, I'm sure he can be at Michigan for as long as he wants to. And, we'll see what direction Coach Harbaugh wants to go.
Yeah, it's definitely a name that I think a lot of people have been buzzing about. I know Bruce Feldman was on this show last week, was the one who initially reported it. And he was really just mentioning how he finally has that win over Ohio State and he would be willing to make that move. And of course, Harbaugh got his start in coaching with the Raiders, and he does have a close relationship with Mark Davis. So they're now starting that search right now. So we currently have 8 head coach openings around the NFL: Jaguars, Bears, Giants, Vikings, Texans, Raiders, Dolphins, Broncos. I believe that's all of them. That's 25% of the league. Which would you say is the best opening, not just from a talent perspective, but ownership, personnel situation, just the city you'll be walking to? Who has the best situation right now from all those openings?
Yeah. For me, that'd be easy. That would be Jacksonville. And one of the great privileges I had in my career was between my time with the Jets and Dolphins, I represented coaches. And one of the coaches I represented was Steve Kerr. And we did the deal in Golden State. And to Steve's credit, he recognized that Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and Klay Thompson were just an incredible foundation. And obviously the rest is history. And I would say because of the greatness that Trevor Lawrence came into the league with, that could really be a great situation. And if you think about even the cash flow on his deal, which is to be about roughly, I believe, about $8 million for the next 3 years. And a quarterback's going to be making over $40 million a year. They're getting another $30 million a year in cap space. So imagine if they go out and get a Devontae Adams or Chris Godwin. There's no state income tax. So I think that's a place, because of Trevor Lawrence, it could be a great opportunity for a coach.
Yeah, there's obviously the young quarterback element there of Trevor Lawrence. And, there are two teams right now who have quarterbacks drafted in the first round last year without head coaches. There's Jacksonville and then there's Chicago of Justin Fields. How much does it matter for teams to bring in an offensive guy when you have a young first-round quarterback? Is that something that teams really have to strongly consider, or is that talk just overblown and let's just go get the best guy for the job?
Yeah, I think it's more of the latter. You want to get the best guy for the job. Some of the greatest coaches in the history of our sport are on the defensive side: Nick Saban, Bill Parcells, Bill Belichick. You want to get a leader, somebody that can scale leadership, somebody that can install a culture, be a great teacher. So I think it's much more about being the right person than it is getting, they have to be on this side of the ball or the other side of the ball.
You mentioned something interesting before. I think it's a little bit of an unknown fact about you that between your time with the Dolphins and the Jets, you were a coaching agent and you got Steve Kerr to go to Golden State, like you said, instead of going to the Knicks. And that, of course, has worked out really well. One of the NFL coaches that you represented as well during that period was Dan Quinn. And he's a pretty hot candidate right now with interviews scheduled in Denver, Minnesota, Miami, and Chicago. Where do you think would be the best landing spot for Dan for his second opportunity as a head coach?
If Dan was coaching Pop Warner, it'd be a good landing spot. Dan's a remarkable guy. He's a really good coach. He makes people around him better. He took a team to the Super Bowl in Atlanta, came very, very close to winning, as we all know. I think he's by far one of the 32 best coaches in the league. Obviously, I'm very biased. I have a lot of respect for Dan and the job he's done. And I worked with him at the Jets, so I saw firsthand what a force multiplier he could be in a building. And we'll see how the process plays out. I don't think there's any question that he has earned the right for another job. Not just what he did in Atlanta, but what he did with a very young Dallas defense. They continue to get better, and I think that's one of the things you have to look at, Ari, in terms of assessing how good of a coach is did his side of the ball get better during the season?
Yeah, there's a lot of talk right now about Dan Quinn in Denver. That's his first interview here coming up with them. But I was kind of wondering, it sounds like Mike McCarthy is going to stay in Dallas. But, you mentioned how well that team did with Dan Quinn on defense this year. They were so bad last year. And I think Dan Quinn really had a lot of fun this past year as well in Dallas. And, they took major strides. I know many people said they could maybe pull the plug on McCarthy and promote Kellen Moore. But what about just promoting Dan Quinn? Because, again, you talk so highly about him. There's a lot of talk about Mike McCarthy and how, maybe they could move on from him or not. But do you think that's something that Jerry Jones should at least consider there in Dallas?
No, I went on record today on ESPN. I don't. I'm not one to just quickly fire people. Never been my philosophy. And I think you need to solve the problem. And they had 69 penalties on offense, which was second in the league behind Jacksonville. They led the league in penalties with 153. That's the part you have to solve. I want a detailed plan from Mike McCarthy, if he's working for me, how to fix it, because I may not let you leave Oxnard next summer as our head coach if I see more penalties. So I'm going to give you the answers to the text. Go fix it.
Yep. So that's exactly what they're planning to do. I mean, Stephen Jones went on the record, said we're absolutely going to keep him. So Dan Quinn is going to interview for a bunch of different places. He's most likely, if he wants to get a job, he's going to get one. Let's shift over to a team you know pretty well, the Jets. They have not made the playoffs since 2011, the longest streak in the NFL. What are your thoughts on Zach Wilson, Coach Saleh, and just that organization right now? Do you see them, turning a stride in 2022?
Oh, I thought you wanted to talk about the leadership that led that team to the playoffs in 2011. I'm sorry. Look,
they were good.
Ari, they have to get better next year. And I think what's so important is Zach Wilson. And I thought there were flashes at the end where he did play better. And people say, oh, well, he has to be Josh Allen. No, he just has to go be Zach Wilson. He's not the athlete that Josh Allen is, but he's a functional athlete. He has good arm strength. He has good accuracy. Vera Tucker was a first-round pick a year ago. Becton the year before that. They have to be foundational pieces on the offensive line. And they have to get off to a good start. I think it's important that, going to Coach Saleh's second year, you need to see meaningful improvement It's not about cap space. It's not about how many draft choices they have. It's about winning on the field. And this was a team that only won 4 games last year. They have to play better, and it's going to be an important year. Now, I love the fact that they're coaching the Senior Bowl. I think that'll really help them. Hopefully for them, they'll be able to get like an extra pick or two at the end that, maybe a little bit under the radar.
Yeah, you mentioned, the draft that they have coming up here. They do have 2 top 10 picks, one at number 4, one at number 10, thanks to the Jamal Adams trade. And they'll be looking to build around their young quarterback in Zach Wilson. But there are some other teams around the NFL who might have some question marks surrounding their quarterback right now. And I jotted down here just 5 names. Wanted to get your take on exactly what should these teams do with their current quarterback situation. And I'm going to start off with number 1 here with Baker Mayfield. Andrew Berry came out, said we plan on having him as our quarterback. That's really what GMs are supposed to say. What should the Browns do here with Baker Mayfield? They're on their hook for $18.8 million, and that's it. What should they do with him here this offseason?
Yeah, Ari, that's great acumen by you. That's exactly right. That's what Andrew Berry needs to say, but that's not what they should do. He's clearly the 3rd best quarterback in that division, and his height and speed deficiencies continue to show up. So he's behind Joe Burrow. He's behind Lamar Jackson. Candidly, he may even be behind Tyler Huntley. That's a story for another day. If I'm them, I try to go get a Jameis Winston and Jimmy Garoppolo and maybe draft one, but Baker Mayfield's not good enough for them.
What do you do with him here? Does he have trade value? Like, could they get a 2nd-round pick out of him right now after this year that he just had? Like, what could a team get for Baker Mayfield who's in the final year of his contract?
Yeah, I would think so, because there's so many teams that need a quarterback, be it Denver, Carolina, New Orleans. I mean, there's about a dozen teams that really could use a starting quarterback. That's not even considering teams like Houston or a team like Tampa that needs a quarterback for the future. Depends what happens with Miami and Tua. So there's a ton of teams that need quarterbacks. So I do think you can maybe get a 2nd or 3rd round pick for Baker.
Interesting. That's for sure one team we'll be watching. Number 2 here is Daniel Jones. Obviously, there's a GM head coach vacancy there, but they have a big 5th-year option decision to make on him, $21 million fully guaranteed. How would you approach that situation with the Giants?
I would bring Daniel Jones back. I'd have him compete. I'd bring in a veteran, and my program would start really to stand for meritocracy. Daniel, you may be here for 10 years. Ironically, Phil Simms early in his career was somebody that had a lot of injuries, and then he went on and had a great career. Or you may not start. If you turn the ball over, you're not going to be our quarterback. So I would give him a chance to compete, but I certainly wouldn't hand him the position.
What do you do with that 5th-year option? Because, of course, the new CBA now is that it becomes fully guaranteed no matter what. They have to decide on that this offseason. Do you pick that up? Do you leave it alone? It's a bit tough with his situation where he's had injuries and his weapons have had injuries. We really haven't been able to see him at his fullest potential, but we have to decide on this. What do you do from there?
Yeah, I simply wouldn't exercise it. And if he plays great, then what you can do, you can always franchise him, but you don't want to be in a situation like Carolina with Sam Darnold or Baker Mayfield and guarantee money that you wish you didn't.
Yep, and that's another situation there in Carolina, which we'll get to in a second. But what about Tua, another team that has a head coach opening? Chris Greer came out and said, hey, he's going to be our quarterback. Now the floor is no longer there. It sounds like Watson's off the table, but is Tua the guy in Miami?
Similar to Baker, he was somebody I had concerns about coming out. There's some things he does well. He's very tough. He's accurate underneath. But he has some limitations that have hurt him. So, again, very similar. I would try to bring in another quarterback and compete. And there were some things that went well in Miami. They won about 7 games in a row in the middle of the year there. And I would certainly bring him back, but I just wouldn't give him a chance. I just would say, hey, this is your job, and nobody else can compete for the job, because I don't think he's earned that.
Yep, and they kind of did that this offseason by bringing in a guy like Jacoby Brissett, but they had a winning streak. Whatever happened there with Brian Flores, the Deshaun Watson rumors, it was pretty heavy. It might have annoyed him. It probably did, but whatever the case is, he's going to have a new head coach this next season, but still questions there with him. And the last one that I have over here is Jalen Hurts, or the second to last one. Jalen Hurts, Eagles have 3 first-round picks. Howie Roseman is in every possible deal out there. They made the playoffs, but is he the guy in Philadelphia?
Possibly. And I would take one of those 3 first-round picks and draft a quarterback. I thought we saw his deficiencies in that playoff game. he's a good player, but, he struggled with some accuracy issues. He did at Oklahoma. He did at Alabama. He's a good player, very dangerous with the ball in his hands, but I don't see him as a sort of like top of the line quarterback. So I like him, but I would certainly not just hand him the job for next year either. I would bring in competition.
Yep. And as I said, Harry Roseman is literally looking at every possible deal out there. Names out there, of course, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson. We'll see what they do with 3 first-round picks coming here this offseason. The last one is Sam Darnold, the one that we mentioned before. We mentioned how the Panthers picked up that 5th-year option, $18 million. I don't think he's the guy for next year, but what do you do with that contract? How do you move on from it?
This could be like a Brock Osweiler situation, Ari, where maybe you trade him the way Houston did to Cleveland and you eat some of the money. He didn't play well. They own the 5th-year option. That clearly was a mistake. And if I'm Carolina, I'm probably going to try to cut my losses on that one.
The question here really is, why would they even pick that up in the first place when they made that trade? Is it just a confidence thing? Because at the end of the day, NFL is a business. So why are we doing that if we're not even sure what we're getting out of this guy?
I totally agree. If you want to bring him in and let him compete with, whoever it was, even before they signed Cam Newton and say, hey, you're the quarterback, that's one thing. Because again, if you don't exercise the option and he plays well, Ari, you have that franchise tag in your back pocket. So I think that's Matt Rule just having a lack of experience because, what they did is they traded for him, drafted J.C. Horn, then they exercised the option. It just didn't make a lot of sense to me.
Yep. So we're going to have a pretty busy quarterback carousel here this offseason. The thing about the NFL right now is that you really need to have a top-tier quarterback or have a really good roster and coaching staff to have a real shot. Look at the 8 teams that are left. I mean, it's Rodgers, Brady, Stafford, Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, then Garoppolo with that coaching staff and roster, and then Tannehill, who really deserves more credit, but also with an excellent coaching staff and a great roster when healthy. When looking at it that way, I mean, if you don't have a top guy, you have the right to go out and try to look for an upgrade somewhere else. Now, I want to talk about a coach here for a second, because back in December, you wrote an article on the 33rdteam.com, The Remarkable Leadership of Dan Campbell. I think everyone became fans of Dan Campbell this past year. Are the Lions finally going in the right direction?
Yeah, I think Dan has really interesting leadership skills. In 2015, he was our interim head coach for 12 games. It's interesting, Ari. I think his situation's not totally dissimilar from Rich Bisaccia, where he had a meaningful number of games as an interim head coach and did a wonderful job. And I think they are going in the right direction. It was disappointing that things didn't work out with Anthony Lynn. And I think what's really important now is that Coach Campbell builds on the foundation they have, the success, have some continuity. But Dan has rare leadership ability.
No, the other thing about Detroit is that their front office has a bunch of just talent evaluators, right? Brad Holmes is their general manager, but he's, came from the Rams, was there forever, and he's a talent evaluator at heart. John Dorsey, same thing with him, who's now there. And we saw them find some big-time building blocks, with Penei Sewell, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and some other young guys. They're building the trenches. They have 2 first-round picks this year and next. Campbell and Holmes both got 6-year deals, so ownership will be patient there. If I'm a Lions fan, I mean, I'm excited for what the future holds there. All right, before I wrap this up, Mike, I wanted to talk about this. As I mentioned in the beginning, you've done so many different things, GM, agent, TV, and you have this website that I just mentioned, the 33rdteam.com. What exactly was the idea about getting this started a couple of years ago? And I guess for the people who are not familiar with the site, what do you guys have going there now? And, just elaborate exactly what the future holds with the website.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. It's really a very basic premise that I candidly just fell into when I was privileged enough to get the job with ESPN. I knew I needed help and went to University of Massachusetts and paid a couple of students to help me. And we quickly realized that there's a number of programs out there in sports management that can give credits to students, like really smart, advanced grad students that are looking in a meaningful way to get some experience. And then I was working on the draft, and there were a couple of coaches, Greg Schiano, Jim Caldwell, Dan Quinn. Dan had just left Atlanta, where they were looking to need support to stay current. So we said, you know what, let's just jump on a call once a week and talk about what's going on. And fast forward, that led to there's 50 of us now that get on a call, former players like Rich Gannon, executives like Joe Banner and Bill Polian, coaches like Doug Peterson, Dan Quinn, and on and on and on, Dirk Cutter, Chris Palmer, Wade Phillips, Eric Mangini. And we just talk about the issues of the week. And then we realize, like, you know what, like, let's help others get to where they want to go. And we put out all our content for free. We have a completely free newsletter. Go to the website, the3013.com. And then our students have gotten just incredible experience working with our coaches. So we've placed, very proud to say this, over 8 men and women in the NFL because of the experience. And I was talking to one GM who hired 2 of our students. I'm like, why'd you do that? And he kind of chuckled. He's like, if they're working for Bill Polian, they're good enough for me. And, Bill Polian's a world-class GM. And, so many of our guys are so gracious with their time and their mentorship. And it's helped men and women get their foot in the door. And now we've kind of expanded our program to University of Michigan and Columbia, Tulane. And, we just want to put out content for free. And we want to help young men and women pursue their dreams. And then we also want to help coaches like a Dan Quinn, who's between opportunities, give him the support necessary so they can kind of reflect on their experiences so they're better off the next time around as well.
Yeah, I mean, just absolutely a lot of incredible inside knowledge from front office commentary, team studies, interviews, breakdowns. You guys have the Friday Five, which I was honored to do as well. You guys interview one person from the media every week, or really just anybody on there as well. A lot of great stuff on the 33rdteam.com. Mike, I really want to thank you for taking the time today. Everyone can go and follow you on Twitter and on Instagram. It is at Real Tannenbaum. I know you were really busy today. We had a couple of times we had to schedule this, but Mike, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate this. And hopefully we could do it again here later this offseason.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Your Friday Five was great. People should check it out. Your work ethic, Ari, is fantastic. It's inspiring. No one handed you anything, and keep up the great work. I'm a big fan of you and your passion.
Thank you so much, Mike. I really appreciate that.